Welcome back to the Fantasy Trading Room, hosted by Faceoff Sports Network. And today we're going to be diving into the top 24 wide receiver and running back rankings, giving you which guys you should start, which guys you should sit, who you should be expecting, high-end wide receiver one production, low-end wide receiver end production, and signals for running backs to help you make the best decisions for your fantasy football lineup. With that said, let's dive right into these wide receiver rankings. Don't want to waste too much more of your time. We have Tyreek Hill against the Carolina Panthers. And I know I have a Panthers jersey on. I'm just a big jersey guy. This is the Cam Newton jersey, but I know a lot of you guys are talking about the Bears backdrop in the background. The Bears are my favorite team, but I kind of want some more just like NFL stuff. So let me know what I should drop down below. Now I got a lot of media passes from the combine and all that. So I'm thinking trying to put up some picture and all that type of cool stuff. But again, if you have any suggestions, be sure to drop it down below or in our Facebook group where I take a lot of suggestions from. But after Tyreek Hill, we dropped all the way down to tier 2 with Stephon Diggs playing against the Giants. Now I'm looking at these implied team totals, and the Dolphins are the number one highest scoring team with 30.7 implied points. And the Buffalo Bills are all the way up there with 29.75 against the Giants. So now, these shouldn't be very close games, which I would ideally like a close game. Great offenses, more opportunities with bad defenses. I'm more than fine taking these studs very, very highly and expecting big points from them. Then we're going down to Ja'Marr Chase against the Seahawks. He had a phenomenal week last week, dropping 52 fantasy points. Joe Burrow looked better. I'm not fully sold in to put him above Diggs right now. I think Diggs has looked fantastic, but he's definitely still up in that tier. Tier 2 is kind of a big clump of guys. We have Cooper Kupp against the Cardinals. Cooper Kupp came back and did not miss a beat. We saw him and Puka dominating, so that's a great sign. Stafford looks a lot better than expected this season. Again, we've said it over and over. I really like Stafford, but not everyone did. He's proving those haters wrong, showing out. Cardinals are a terrible defense, but their offense doesn't look too bad, so this is a really nice matchup for me. A serviceable offense. It should be a somewhat close game. Then we got Devontae Adams against the Patriots. Kind of had a disappointing revenge week against the Packers, but he's still an elite guy. You got to start him up there. Then we got Keenan Allen against the Dallas Cowboys. I actually really like this game because both the Cowboys and the Chargers are all the way up there in implied points. Chargers are at 24.25, and the Cowboys are at 26.25. So it's going to be a high-scoring game. It's going to be a close game. Really like that game environment for Keenan Allen. Again, he is benefiting with no Mike Williams. Quentin Johnson hasn't risen onto the scene yet. And Josh Palmer hasn't looked fantastic either as of late. Then we're going down to CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown. I'm kind of going back and forth between these guys, but again, I kind of was looking at implied team total to separate the two. And for this week, we have the Cowboys, like I said, at 26. And the Eagles are down at 23.5. So kind of just a higher scoring game. More opportunity, especially for wide receivers. I really like using that stat as a tiebreaker. It's probably one of my favorite stats for, just making small tweaks on these weekly rankings. But then we'll drop down all the way to tier 3. We'll go Puka Nacua against the Cardinals. Again, he is worse than Kupp, obviously. It may not be obvious to some people who are really very high on Puka and don't expect Kupp to continue with his old age, but I'm not bought into that narrative that Kupp is old and washed. No, he looks absolutely fine. Then we got Amon-Ra, and then Calvin Ridley, who looked very good last week. He had 20 points in, what was a solid game. Trevor Lawrence looked a lot better, passed for 300 yards for the first time this season. But it's really that Ridley is missing out on a lot of these touchdowns, which he should be getting. He's missing on every week. He's at the top of missed fantasy points because he just can barely knock him on for a touchdown or a bunch of other just random misfortunes. I actually didn't like Ridley at all going into the season, so it doesn't really fit my narrative to defend him, so it's kind of another plus for me talking up on Ridley. But again, I'm obviously not going to stick with one narrative. As things change, I'm going to go and adjust as all good analysts should do. But then here's where I'm probably going to get roasted. I have Chris Olave higher than DJ Moore, and I'm a Bears fan, so this doesn't really make much sense to me. Again, I'm obviously not biased, but Olave, I really hope that he gets on track. Now, with injuries to him and Carr, if things look like they're really going to be up in the water, then sure. Then we'll start DJ Moore over him. he's still in that tier. But again, this is why this is a tier list. If you have, a small personal opinion, I mean, that's what fantasy is all about. By all means, jump DJ Moore up. But my point is, you shouldn't be starting Brandon Ayuk over Calvin Ridley, in my opinion. They're two different tiers. But again, I think DJ Moore is going to come down to earth. As a Bears fan, Justin Fields is not a great passer. Only had 280 yards in a phenomenal game last week, and DJ Moore had 230 of them. I mean, that is a crazy target share, and DJ Moore is a very good player, but how do you expect this efficiency to keep up? That would basically make DJ Moore one of the best wide receivers of all time with how much work he's getting. Again, Olave, I think, is set for a bounce back, but we're going to keep monitoring those injuries around the Saints. Then dropping down to team 4, we have Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith, Brandon Ayuk. Jalen Waddle hasn't been fantastic. He had a touchdown last week, which kind of saved his week, but they're both two wide receiver twos. I like Waddle more than Smith. This is kind of guys where it's, they may have been struggling as of late, but we draft them super high. They are studs, and we're not going to sit our studs. So we're starting Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith. Again, both two very similar players in my opinion, but I would much rather have a piece of the Dolphins offense, especially this week, as they have the most implied points scored, and the Eagles are relatively kind of down there playing against the Jets. And Brandon Ayuk also has looked pretty good this year. And the 49ers offense has been clicking. They're rolling. Going up against the Browns, I expect another big game out of these pass catchers. Again, it's kind of hard to call any of these guys like top 12 options if Kittle, Debo, and Ayuk are all healthy with how little target share or how little targets there are to go around. But nonetheless, you should be starting him as a mid wide receiver 2 due to the crazy talent he has and how good he was at the beginning of the year. Now in tier 5, we kind of have DK Metcalf against the Bengals. He's like very good. I'm not the biggest DK fan. I think if you can sell him high, I would. But with that said, he's getting the most targets on the team. He's been crazy efficient. I like the game skip against the Bengals. Should be a high-scoring matchup. Then Adam Thielen against the Dolphins. I mean, Adam Thielen has just been balling out. He's currently a top 10 wide receiver, and I don't expect this to decline anytime soon. Now, in the offseason, I was obviously I wasn't this high on Thielen, but I was like, these wide receivers are trash. The Panthers need someone to throw it to. Adam Thielen had 100 targets last year. He's going to be probably pretty good this year. Now, he is old. He's 33. He's high risk for injury, and, it's kind of hard to predict that a 33-year-old wide receiver won't drop off during the course of the year, but I don't mind this matchup either, even though they're probably going to get blown out. I think that should mean more passing volume for Bryce Young, which, hence, if they're, down basically the whole game, they're not going to have an opportunity to even run the ball. Just a ton of passing volume as they, the Dolphins are going to give them more free yard, should help out Thielen. Then we got Marquise Brown, Jordan Addison, Garrett Wilson. 3 pretty similar wide receivers in my opinion. They're all kind of boom-bust type options at this point, but not even. Marquise Brown is averaging 15 points a game. Josh Dobbs is looking pretty good. Jordan Addison, it's just these guys are all have the big play potential, more so should I say. Jordan Addison has big play potential, and he's with the injury of Justin Jefferson, he should really be stepping into a much bigger role. Again, I have Hawk as the number 1 target. I think he should be. He is an elite receiver. He got a bag from the Vikings, and they really want to incorporate him in this offense. But, of course, the rookie Addison is going to take a large chunk of these targets filled by Justin Jefferson. He just absolutely dominated this offense. And let's say Garrett Wilson, I know a lot of people are telling me that I shouldn't even have him in my top 24. But upside, I think Zach Wilson is looking slightly better. Do I dare say it? I don't mind it. I'm chasing upside here at the wide receiver 2. And to cap this list off, we have Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, and Deebo Samuel. Amari Cooper, I really like against the 49ers. Very solid game script. Again, it shouldn't be that close of a game, but when I mean solid game script, I mean the Browns are going to be trailing. But actually, on second thought, I'd probably move Amari Cooper down all the way at 24. I think the talent's there, but Deshaun Watson is unlikely to play. I did rank these before the news broke. So, again, we'll leave him here for now. And if we get a definite confirmation that Watson is not playing, I think I'd probably have to drop him out of the top 24 receivers with DTR is not very good. Then we got Mike Evans, who's been balling out very quietly this year, and Deebo Samuel. Again, 2 very high upside players. They are relatively kind of boom or bust, especially Debo, I dare say it when they have these other guys in the offense, but again, solid options. I really like them as, low end wide receiver twos that could definitely score 50 points and win you your week, especially in the case of Mike Evans. I'd say Debo's ceiling is a little capped due to Kittle, the run game, and Ayuk. But still, we all know how good prime Debo Samuel was. If we have weeks like that, then he'll absolutely crush and win your week. But that's going to be it for the wide receivers. So let's dive into the running backs. And in a tier of his own for the running backs, we have Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you could argue that Tyreek should have made a tier of his own, but there's really no argument against Christian McCaffrey. He's prime Christian McCaffrey, like he was on the Panthers, but he's in the best offensive scheme in the NFL with the best coach, and he's getting a ton of workload, ton of targets, ton of receptions, ton of rushing yards. He is just dominating. The touchdowns right through the roof. I don't even need to say anything more. McCaffrey is just the number one running back every single week. He is that guy. Then tier 2, we got Bijan, Tony Pollard, Eckler, Etienne. These are guys that, Bijan, I kind of like the matchup. I don't think the Commanders are great. Again, Bears took down the Commanders. The Bears aren't a great defense, so close game enough to where I think the Falcons can run the ball. Tony Pollard, we're just looking for the upside here. This should be a high-scoring game. I really like it. Pollard's kind of struggled, but high-scoring matchup. Give me these guys in that game. Eckler, same deal. Has been banged up this season, but he's still Austin Eckler. It's a high-scoring game. And then Etienne, I finally traded for in one of my leagues, and he popped off with 37 points. The efficiency's there finally last week, and the volume has been there all year. Tank Bigsby is not a factor, so why are you not buying Etienne right now? I know it's probably too late to buy Etienne, but he should be treated as a top 5 back. Tank Bigsby is not even getting more than 50% of the snaps. Not even 50%. I meant to say over 22% at all this year. Now, this may be subject to change later on in the year, and it might be kind of tough as I'm depending on Etienne, and Tank Bigsby gets phased in the offense to some extent. But right now, Etienne is easily a locked and loaded top 5 running back going forward. Then we'll go to the tier 3. We got Josh Jacobs against the Patriots. I mean, the Raiders are not good. The Patriots are awful too. It's going to be just a bad game, but Jacobs has the talent and the workload. Again, you'll notice the theme. In the wide receivers, it's kind of easy to pick out who we want. There's a lot of good talent. We can kind of lean heavily more on matchup based. But with the running backs, I mean, if there is a guy with the workload and the talent, I mean, they have to be up there. There's nothing else we can really say at that point. Kenneth Walker against the Bengals. Again, solid game. Walker's been balling out because Charbonnet, same kind of theme. Charbonnet hasn't been getting involved early in the season. Right now, starting Walker with no hesitation. I think Kyren Williams has had kind of a few dud games, but they have a good game matchup against the Cardinals. Should be able to run the ball actually for the first time in quite some time. The Rams aren't necessarily a fantastic team, so it's not like they're able to get ahead and dominate teams, but I could easily see that happening against the Cardinals. Then we got Monty against the Bucs. And we'll talk about this for a second, but Monty should be treated as a top 10 back for the rest of the season. He is the workhorse back on a great Lions offense. He's getting every touch. He's the goal line back. The Lions, we saw them give 17 touchdowns to Jamal Williams. So now what you know, we're getting a more talented runner and receiver than Jamal Williams with the same, goal line upside. Why are we not starting Monty as he's a top 10 back every single week? Dan Campbell, who's a generally good coach. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad coach by this, but what I mean by this is he is a nice guy towards the media. What he says towards the media is, probably not just coach's fluff for the most part, but he's saying that we want to give Monty 20, 25, 30 touches a game, and Jahmyr Gibbs is the changeup back. Now, whether or not you disagree with that and how Jahmyr Gibbs should be used, I disagree. I don't even like Jahmyr Gibbs, but I don't think they should have spent the 12th overall pick on him. But that's the fact of the matter is, like I said, we need to adjust right now, and Jahmyr Gibbs is not having a role in this offense. And they've gone out and said Monty is the bell cow. They've shown he's the bell cow, so why are we not treating him like a bell cow? But in tier 4, right now I have Kamara. I really didn't expect Kamara to come back this strong, and He hasn't been a fantastic runner, but he's dominated right away. He's still catching a ton of passes, and I think this running efficiency will go up, especially against the Texans, who are very bad defense. Should be a good game script. Tough matchup for the Texans to try and stop Alvin Kamara. Probably not gonna be able to do it. We got Joe Mixon, good game, touchdown upside, good offense. Not much more to say. I don't really love Joe Mixon as a player anymore. His efficiency has pretty much gone down almost every single year. Derrick Henry is a guy I'm actually very worried about. Tajay Spears has had more than 50% of snaps in 4 or 5 games now. This is extremely concerning, but I think the Ravens have not looked good. So I think the Titans can hang in there, let Derrick Henry eat in rushing yards, but again, it's going to be close. I feel like at this point, you just kind of got to start Henry. And once we really see him fall off, then we'll move him down. But, I'm not very excited about Breece Hall. I don't like this Jets offense. He looked great last week, but can he keep this up? I'm not sure. Raheem Mostert I like as well, but it's kind of hard for me to put these guys that aren't nearly as talented as Henry above him just because of the situation where I think it's in the range of outcomes that Henry is in a close game with the Ravens. But even so, Devon Achane goes down for at least 4 weeks, and he's eyed to be back around week 11. So Mostert is a massive winner from that. I was telling you guys to sell high on him early in the year, but now that he is the clear back, we'll see how Jeff Wilson is. His offense again, kind of another knock why I don't have him higher. But then we'll drop down to tier 5. We have Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, Alexander Madison, and Jonathan Taylor. Now, Rachaad White, this high may be frustrating to a lot of people, but again, when we're at this role, not a lot of guys are, have talent and have workload. I wouldn't say White necessarily has the talent, but he definitely has the workload. Getting 90% of snaps in most games, 70% of snaps in all. I mean, he's a bell cow. He's getting every touch on the backfield. He's the goal line back, and I really just hope that he can turn things around. I mean, we're sitting for upside here. I don't see how you can have him outside the top 24 when none of these backs are getting anywhere near to that type of workload. And we kind of have these other guys. I mean, I'll talk about Jonathan Taylor for just 1 second. I don't know what to do with Jonathan Taylor. I feel like we have to start him because he's Jonathan Taylor, but is he really going to have a role in this offense right away? Because Zach Moss is balling out, and do they have a reason to force him back into this offense right away when Moss can, slowly let Taylor ease in? Probably not. So this is recorded after Thursday Night Football. We can just talk about Pacheco real quick. I mean, 15 points. He is kind of who we thought he was, but he had 6 receptions for 36 yards, which was a big shocker. But we all knew that the Broncos defense is one of the worst of all time, so not too surprised there. But then we got, Pacheco, James Cook, Madison. Neither guys I'm particularly excited about. But then we'll drop down in tier 6. We got Brian Robinson against the Falcons. I think it can be a close game. As long as the Commanders aren't getting blown out, Antonio Gibson basically stays on the sidelines and they let Brian Robinson eat. Then I got Zach Moss. I really don't know what to do with him. I feel like you have to start him until we see Jonathan Taylor completely take over because, maybe he's not too involved and only gets 10 fancy points, which is probably realistic if they split the backfield 2 ways, which I don't really see them going much more than that in Taylor's second week back. But you can't leave these 33 points on your bench if they do decide to let Moss do exactly what we did last week, let Taylor continue to ease things in. He's just too risky of a sit to where you have to start him. Then we got Dameon Pierce against the Saints. I don't love Pierce, but it's not a bad matchup. Pierce has been improving. And then let's talk about Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, he didn't have a great game from a real-life perspective, I know. And fantasy, he had 6.2 points. I wasn't really too sure if he caught some passes. He didn't. 2 for 12 yards. Kind of a dud there, which sucks. But then we have Ramondre Stevenson. And Ramondre Stevenson is making me very disappointed week after week. But if he's going to break out, it's going to be against the Raiders. The Raiders are not a good defense. He's had a horrible schedule early on. And he's kind of been banged up. I mean, once we get to running back 24, there's no safe bets. So why don't we draft the guy who was being drafted in the third, fourth round of drafts this year, has a ton of passing ability, and is in a much easier situation and game script than what we saw earlier in the year. But that should wrap things up. Again, thank you guys so much for watching and checking out this video for these rankings. If you want to come back, we also drop these waiver wire videos every single Tuesday and hopefully some Dynasty content in the near future. Again, if you want to join the Face Off Facebook group, we can interact there or in the YouTube comments. I just want to give a quick shout out to Kyle from the Facebook group, as he kind of gave me some suggestions on doing some drops for our waiver wire video, and I'm going to be incorporating that a little bit. I know it's kind of hard because there's no concrete data, but I can tell you guys who people around my big money leagues are dropping and who I think that you should just be dropping to clear up space for these new guys. So again, if you do want to comment, I'm going to talk about the videos in there. Just come in there, talk about the videos, give me suggestions, and there's a very good chance that I will use your suggestion for whatever it is. But again, thank you so much for checking out this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video next week.